Well. Welcome. And boy, that was short. 2 short months of pitching. Justin Verlander was injured in the beginning of the season. Didn't really pitch much for the Mets. As of late, he's been pitching phenomenal, built up his trade value, the 40-year-old man, and now he is going back home, a familiar place. Is going back to the Houston Astros. Good for Houston, going for it, strengthening their pitching rotation. Good trade for them. They gave it up 2 promising prospects, but more importantly, the Mets have shifted their philosophy in such a big way. Such a big way. We went from having the highest payroll, and boy, we are paying a lot of money, but at least now we're turning that money into prospects. And that's all it's going to be about right now. It's going to be about the future, 2024 and beyond. And rumor has it, it's probably going to be more about 2025. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Mets play this out. They're going to be bringing up the young kids. And it's just going to be a sight to see because this is not what we expected. Not what we expected at all. At all. So Justin Verlander goes back home. And I got to say, when I saw this trade come through, and it came through about 20 minutes ago, and I didn't know how to feel about it. All throughout the day, I was hoping the Dodgers would get involved. I was hoping the Orioles would get involved because they have good farm systems. In fact, when I was researching the Astros farm system, they're not that good. They're really not that good in terms of rankings. They were actually towards the bottom. So I wasn't excited to see that we were interested in talking to the Astros. But you know what? We were limited. We were really limited because Justin Verlander had the no trade and he could veto any team he didn't want to go to. So that's where we were limited. And I'm just going to put my faith and confidence in Billy Eppler and the scouting department that they did their homework, and the return that they got back were 2 young, promising outfielders, and they got the number 1 prospect in the Astros organization, Drew Gilbert, and he was a very highly touted guy, and we just got to see how things play out. It's really going to be in 2 to 3 years. We don't know how these guys are going to play out. But right now, let's focus on the here and now. The Mets already traded Scherzer. They traded Verlander. They traded Eduardo Escobar over a month ago. David Robertson. We still got a couple more guys left. We got Brooks Raley on the table. We got Tommy Pham on the table. We're going to be collecting prospects. That is what it's going to be about. No doubt about it. And I'm excited about that. You know, yes, it's sad to give up on the season, but you know what? Our foundation was terrible. Bottom line, we sucked. We were terrible. All right. So what we're going to do is rip it down from the studs and build a new foundation. We're going to have a bunch of young players. Our team is going to be young, and rumors are actually swirling that Pete Alonso could be out of here. I don't think there is enough time to trade him now, but the old regime of the squirrel and the polar bear, I don't know how long that's going to last. I really don't. It seemed like they told JV and they told Max Scherzer that they're gearing up for 2024 and beyond, so it wasn't enticing for 40-year-olds to be here. But Pete Alonso's another guy who we keep hearing his name on the table as of late. And me, I'm like, right now, they don't really have much in the lineup if you take Pete Alonso out. So that is a little bit alarming, but here's what I think about. These last 2 months have been months from hell. They have been horrific, right? And Pete Alonso hasn't had a last good 2 months except for the last week and a half. He's come on in a big way. And that kind of bothers me because in the last week and a half, the trade deadline was approaching. Obviously, he saw us trading off players and he started to produce. But when we really needed Pete Alonso to be a leader and to produce, he did anything but produce, right? I think he really soured himself in front of the Mets front office. They're like, if we're going to pay this guy a lot of money from now into the future, this guy doesn't appear to be like a leader. He's not putting the team on his shoulders. And I love Pete. He's one of my favorite players. He really is. When he came in 2019, what did he hit? 52 home runs, won Rookie of the Year, won the home run derby a couple times. I love Pete. I really do. But in these last couple months, he's proven that, I don't know, he's not a leader. And if you really notice this, and this is, I really kept note of this, if you see the press conferences now, he's a whole different guy. He's standing up there. He's standing up tall and straight. And I don't know if they spoke to him about how he's got to act. It just seems like it's a different guy, a guy who's more focused, a guy who's more head in the game. And he wasn't like that in the last couple months. And I think that has a good deal about the Mets thinking about him as a part of their future. I think he's going to be out the door. And it's sad to see it because he could be one of the all-time Mets. But, okay, got me a little sidetracked. Back to Justin Verlander. And Justin Verlander gets the pick where he wanted to go. He wanted to go back to Houston, and it seemed like he's going back to Houston, and he's going to be happy there. It's a familiar place for him. Like I said, we give the Houston Astros credit, and look at some of the prospects that we got back. We got back Drew Gilbert, and I believe the other guy's name is Ryan Clifford, and they're both young outfield prospects, so that's good in a way. Billy Eppler and the Mets, they've been really collecting catchers and collecting second base / shortstop. So it's good that they got a couple outfield talent, especially since in the last couple of years with Kelenic and Pico Crow Armstrong getting rid of some of our top outfield prospects. It's good to replenish that position at least. I wish they would have got starting pitching, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So as far as the top prospects or the prospects for the Astros, I'm going to just double check one thing. And I don't know about you, but this is my favorite time of the year. I absolutely love the MLB trade deadline. Growing up, I was always clicking my phone. I was always trying to listen to WFAN, the radio. This was my favorite time of the year by far. And in the past, the Mets didn't really do much. I don't remember too many memorable trade deadlines. In fact, I remember one of the worst trade deadlines is, I believe, the year they traded Scott Kazmir away. I don't know if anybody would remember that, but that was by far the worst trade deadline. I believe they got Chris Benson and Victor Sombrano for Scott Kazmir. And I remember the pitching coach was, I believe it was Scott Peterson. He was the guy who used to be the pitching coach of the Oakland A's. And he's like, I can fix these guys in a minute. But bottom line, we did terrible. All right. So Drew Gilbert, he's an outfielder. He was the top outfield prospect. His ETA is 2025. And the thing that kind of stood out to me about him is he's got a smaller frame. He's 5'9", 195 pounds. He bats lefty. He throws lefty. His scouting grades are he's got a hit of 55, power 45, so he's not a power guy. Run 55, arm 60, field 55, overall 55. So they're saying Gilbert eventually could be a 15 to 20 home run type of guy. And you know, I'm just looking through this, but I really have to be honest. I really didn't want us to make a trade with the Astros. I really didn't. I was really hoping for the Dodgers or the Orioles because I hope Gilbert's going to be good, and I know he's got a lot of potential. But these numbers, so he has a 274 average this year. How many at-bats? He had 310 at-bats, has 12 home runs, 38 RBIs, 39 walks, has an OPS of 821, and an on-base of 363. Okay, so these numbers aren't actually that bad. So he has 310 at-bats. So usually a major league season, a full major league season, you would have about 600 at-bats. If you prorate that, the guy would project to be about 24 home runs, about 80 RBIs. His on base, he's got a high on base, so that's always good. You want a guy who's disciplined at the plate. and his average is pretty decent. So I gotta say, as far as his numbers look pretty decent, but numbers really don't mean much. They really don't mean much in the minor leagues. And he was the number 1 prospect. So I got to do a lot more research on Gilbert. I just was not really fascinated with the Houston farm system. But this guy Ryan Clifford, the number 4 prospect, I actually think he stands out a lot more. The guy is 20 years old, bats lefty, throws lefty. He's got a lot bigger frame. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. His hit tool is a little lower at 50. He's got a 55 power, overall 50. But this guy, I mean, like I like his build, but his numbers are what impresses me. This year in 83 games, he has a 290 average. Wow, 290 average. And listen to this. He's got 400 on base, 520 slug, 919 OPS. He has 18 home runs, 61 RBIs, 46 walks. He has 89 Ks, which is a bit high. Wow, this guy actually has really good numbers. And he's only 20 years old. Wow. Okay. This guy, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. And like I said, I haven't really done any research on these guys at all. But based on his frame, based on his scouting grades, based on his numbers, I really wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Clifford is Ryan Clifford is the prize in this package. So basically, they're saying that he has a very mature approach. He works the count and focuses on making hard contact. Of course, he's a big guy. He has the bat speed and projectability to develop 20 to 25 home run power. And I think he already has that right now. He does a good job of letting his power come naturally. He has a pretty left-handed swing and efficient bat path. Though his 30% strikeout rate is introduction to Pro Bowl. Okay, so that's what I said, is he has a lot of high strikeouts. While Clifford possesses just fringy speed and could slow down as he gets stronger, he works hard to improve his quickness in defense. Okay, so I like what I see. This guy, Clifford, you put him in the outfield in the future. You have Alex Ramirez. You have Brandon Nimmo. You know what? That's how you start building a core. That is how you start to build a core. You got to start building a core with guys who actually have talent, and can develop that talent. So I'm excited about that. I really am. I wish they would have got pitching. But hopefully in the Raley trade, or if they trade a couple of guys, they'll develop these pictures. And I just want to mention something. In the Mark Canha trade, everybody who saw the Mark Canha trade, the gentleman that we got back in the Mark Canha trade, I'm actually really excited about. I saw his scouting report, and I'm not saying that he is going to be this guy. So, anybody who saw my video, I'm taking it down, but he actually has like really good stuff. They say that he has a fastball that's developed over the years of about 94 miles per hour. It has rise on the fastball. He's developed a splitter so that dives down in the plate. And let me just get the gentleman's name. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. So this guy's name that we got from the Milwaukee Brewers is Justin Jarvis. Justin Jarvis has ride on his fastball. He's developed a splitter that dives down in the zone, and he's been developing miles per hour on his pitching. And I'm not saying he's this guy, but he also kind of reminds me of the scouting report of Jacob deGrom from like almost 10 years ago. So I'm not saying that. I know he's not going to be that, but I'm saying his tools are pretty decent. So thus far, the Mets have acquired Luis Angel Acuna, Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, Marco Vargas, Justin Jarvis, Ronald Hernandez, Coleman Crow, and Landon Marco. So, I mean, that's building up the farm system right here. I mean, that's how you do. You start you start chipping these guys. They never presented much value, especially the impending free agent. So I'm glad that we actually capitalize on that and we can focus on our future. Wow. I gotta say, this is what I was excited about starting from 2 weeks up until the beginning of July. I was hoping we would make a run, but this is what we need to do to be better for now and in the future. And if trading a guy like McNeil and Pete is a way to go in a different direction, and I think that's what we're going to be doing, I'm not really sure if I would be opposed to that because I don't know. Like, I really think the leadership of Pete was in question the last couple weeks. Really. We're going to have to see how he plays out through the rest of the year. We're going to have to see how this young team develops, how they gel. It's going to be exciting. I want to see when Mauricio comes back, all these young guys. I know Alex Ramirez is another guy I'm personally excited about. He's probably going to come up at the end of next year. But all these guys, I just can't wait to see them come up. Like Acuna, I can't wait to see him next year. We have so many shortstops, so many second basemen. The guy we drafted this year, number 32 overall, was a shortstop. His name was Colin Hewitt. He's also another top-rated shortstop in our system. We have Jet Williams. We are collecting so many damn shortstops. It's like ridiculous. So, I mean, the reason why you collect so much of this talent at the same position is if somebody would come available down the line 2025, at least now we have a lot of chips to make any trade that we want. So that's good. That's good. And hopefully by 2025, we have a good developed core and we're not paying guys $30, $40 million. That is not working. I'm glad Steve Cohen has recognized the error of his ways. Paying guys ridiculous, absorbent contracts is not a way for sustained success. It's really not. So it's something we have to mimic other teams like the Braves. They are developing talent and then paying that talent when they're young, locking them up long term. So now the Mets have an opportunity to do that. So let's say an Acuna comes on in 2024, 2025, and he shows us he's a player. You lock him up for a cheaper, more affordable contract. So I hope the Mets are going down that road. The thing I am concerned about still is pitching. We don't have a lot of young pitchers in our farm system. Probably the top guy we have is Blade Tidwell. Blade Tidwell's a guy, I believe we drafted him in 2022 in the second round. I think it was number 52 overall, somewhere in the 50s. But he's a guy, he's probably our best pitching prospect right now. So I don't know if we could bring him up at the end of this year, but definitely sometime next year, I like to see him. Then we actually, as far as the rotation, we still have Senga. We have potential free agent options. We could sign Yamamoto from Japan. Julio Urias from the Dodgers, I believe he's a free agent. Blake Snell, I believe he's a free agent. So the loss of Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer means we have a lot of holes in our rotation. Carlos Carrasco, he's not going to be there next year. And you know what? That's a positive. But we have to build somewhat of a reliable, steady rotation next year because I know Steve Cohen, no matter what, he's going to want to win next year. He's going to want to win. Even though we're starting the young guys, even though we have a whole different direction, a change in philosophy, doesn't matter. We're still going to try to win. It's just we're not going to be desperate. No more being desperate. We are done being damn desperate. What's up, Mr. Depressed Met fan? How's it going? Hopefully everybody's enjoying their trade deadline. I got off a little early from work. I went in 5 o'clock in the morning so I can be here, watch the end of the trade deadline. It's a lot better than being at work, so I'm happy about that. And I'm happy I got back just in time for Justin Verlander. So this is my approach. My approach is we're going to look toward the future and we're going to look toward being patient, changing our philosophy, and I like it. I like it right now. And I'm not so confident in Billy Eppler. Anybody who's seen my videos actually knows I don't have a good feeling about him. I think Billy Eppler, no matter what happens, he might get fired at the end of this year. He might get fired because of the fact that we're going to build or bring in a new president, and the new president might clean house. Definitely might clean house, because who the heck is responsible for losing all of this money? You spend $360 million and you freaking fail in 2 months, 3 months. That is unacceptable. I know we're recovering and we're being able to salvage this because of Steve Cohen's money. But think of this, everybody. If this is a normal situation and this is a normal franchise, we're falling on our face right now. We really are. Normal franchises can't afford to pay 80, 90% of contracts going out. We can't eat the Justin Verlander money. We can't eat the Max Scherzer money. We can't eat the Eduardo Escobar money. We would be falling on our face right now. And the only way that we're not is because Steve Cohen's like, there you go. Here's 20 million. Here's 30 million. So that's the only way that we're salvaging this. And I think at the end of the year, Billy Eppler, if it was my decision, he's got to go. He can't waste $450 million a year. Steve Cohen, I'm hoping he holds this guy accountable for losing all this money. He's turning it into a trade prospect, but it didn't work out in the first place. That's the bottom line. That's a good point. If he doesn't sign Ohtani, in fact, I've been saying this. The only reason why Billy Eppler is keeping his job is because of Shohei Ohtani. And I know that's a far fetch, especially because the Mets are terrible. So it doesn't look like Shohei Ohtani would come here to begin with. But the only reason why the guy's got his job is because of Shohei Ohtani. And if that is the only reason, that is horrible. That is not a reason for a guy to keep his job. So I hope that's not the only reason, but I actually think it is. Oh, you know what? I've been scouting the Orioles farm system. If they give up some of their prospects and we get a couple young promising players, I would do it. As much as I love Pete is limited. He really is. He's a defensive liability. He's not a fast guy. He's a power guy. He chases a lot of pitches outside the zone. Sometimes he's a leader. Sometimes he's not. It depends on how he's feeling. It seems like he wasn't a leader this year. Guys aren't following him. You know what? That's something I would definitely look into. I would explore that. And it seems like the Mets front office and the Mets brass is. You know, that would be actually a very wise move. And that would be very wise and very shrewd. I don't know if they trade him, if they would actually want to resign Pete Alonso. So the question is, if the Mets wanted to, they could trade him now and then next year re-sign him. That would be smart. That would be shrewd. But I don't know if the Mets would be interested in like an almost 30-year-old Pete. I don't know. We would have to see. Maybe he goes to Baltimore and he pops 50 home runs and he bats close to 300. Pete has it in it. He definitely has the potential. I always think this year he got hit by Charlie Morton, and then he went downhill after that. He absolutely went downhill, and I was thinking that he was injured the entire year. I was thinking that he was injured into the month of July, but then he just kept going and hitting home runs, and then he did the home run derby, and I'm like, this guy's not injured. He's just playing horrible. He's playing terrible. Yeah. You know, see, that's the thing. And, you know, I said this the other day. The squirrel right now, Jeff McNeil, has to watch his job. His people are coming for his job. There are so many second basemen in our minor league system right now. It's not even funny. And we are acquiring more and more. Acuna is coming for his job. I right now, I pencil in the lineup. I pencil in Acuna at second base, right? Regardless. If McNeil wants to be on this team, he's automatically going to have to be an outfielder. Right? So, yes. So, Ronnie Mauricio is going to be in the outfield next year. McNeil's going to be in the outfield. You're going to have Nimmo in center. You're going to have Beatty at third. You're going to have Lindor at short. You're going to have Acuna at second. If Pete stays, you're going to have Pete at first, and you're going to have Alvarez behind the plate. That should be the starting team right there. You have your young talent, and that's if McNeil stays on the team. If McNeil doesn't stay on the team, which I believe is a high possibility, then we can slot another young guy, maybe one of the guys we traded for today. And, we needed outfielders. We really didn't have many outfield talent in our minor league system. All we had was Alex Ramirez. That's all we had in terms of outfield, upper echelon outfield talent. So to replenish that and get a few guys who have high upside is very, very good. I just don't know how good the guys are, but Clifford, the guy Clifford, I think that he has a higher upside. So the Mets, it seems like the Mets are really shooting for 2025. So a guy like Juan Soto does seem really feasible. It seems like that might be the new apple of Steve Cohen's eye. It was initially Shohei Ohtani, but Juan Soto will be younger. He will be a guy who has played on the National League, the East Coast. So he's a guy who is familiar with this territory, and he's going to be a free agent. So he would essentially have to choose us. Him being familiar and him coming over here, liking the area, I think bodes well for the New York Mets. Plus, obviously, we could throw $500 million at him. That doesn't hurt. But I do have to admit that Juan Soto and his Padres experience, and I hope it turns around. I really does, especially if the Mets are interested. Juan Soto didn't have really the effect that I thought he would on the Padres. I thought adding him to Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., I thought that this team would skyrocket into the stratosphere. Although they are playing better as of late, Juan Soto, he didn't elevate the team. And that's what I'm saying about Pete. Pete is good. He has good individual talent. But if he doesn't elevate the squad, maybe he's not worth paying $250 million or whatever the market would dictate. Like Francisco Lindor, yes, he's a good player, but he's not worth $34 million over 10 years. If Francisco was making 24, 25, I think that would be a more fair value contract for Francisco. Yeah, okay, so Great point. So right now, Shohei Ohtani, it makes no sense for Shohei Ohtani to say I'm going to the New York Mets. It makes no sense. He already said he wants to play for a winner, and I want Shohei to come to the Mets, but I'm just trying to be realistic. He wants to play for a winner. He's happy playing on the West Coast, and I think the Dodgers are a team that has everything that he wants. So why would he come to New York when if he wants to go to a team or wants to change ball club, he could stay on the West Coast and have everything he wants, plus have all the money that we have. So you're right. Ohtani has really in my opinion, he's not going to have interest in the New York Mets, especially after this disaster of a season. Come on. I don't think that makes any sense. Trade one pitcher for Adam Ottavino. So yeah, Adam Ottavino has to go. Adam Ottavino he's an impending free agent. I forget his contract status. He might have an option for next year, but regardless, anything you can get for these guys right now. We were talking earlier, and people were saying that we should keep Brooks Raley, and based on the fact that we've been looking for a lefty for a couple years, we've been looking for a lefty specialist. But here's the deal now. Now that we've traded Justin Verlander away and clearly thrown in the towel for this year, probably next year, Raley's value to the New York Mets on our ball club has went down. His value to other teams is skyrocketing right now. Brooks Raley will be older next year. He won't have the option if we decide to keep him. Right now is the perfect time to trade him. The perfect time. So we have to trade Raley. As long as we're getting good value back, you have to pull the trigger. I mean, right now we're playing the young kids. It doesn't make sense to hold on to, I believe he's like 34 years old. Doesn't make sense to hold on to him. It's not like we have him signed long term. We could capitalize on his value right now. See, okay, that's a very good point. So Max Scherzer going to the front office saying, "What the heck are you doing? Why did you trade David Robertson?" It's when I heard that, when I heard Max Scherzer's interview after the game a couple of days ago, my exact instantaneous reaction is, "What nerve! The nerve of this guy! The nerve of Max Scherzer!" I mean, like he wants to go to a winner. He was on the Mets. It was his job to make the Mets better, but he failed. He failed. And now he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be here. Trade me elsewhere." It was your reason why we're bad, right? And now you want to get out of Dodge? See, that's what I mean about signing these older guys. They're mercenary. They only want things what they want. They want they want the money, obviously, and they want things their specific way. Max Scherzer was very tight with Pete Alonso, so I don't know if this is all connected because I know there's something going on with Pete Alonso right now. The Mets brass is not too high on him. They didn't seem to be too high on Max Scherzer at the end either. So I don't know. There might have been something going on, friction with the players in the front office. Bottom line is our culture, our chemistry, our core was horrible. Building it up fresh from the start is something we need to do. We need leaders. And I say this, I think the front office is a lot more pleased with Lindor as a leader than Pete. And I don't know this for certain, but I believe that they think that Lindor is a better leader. I find Lindor as, a bit comical, especially when I hear him in post game shows, but he's not a guy who's going to cause a lot of tension. He's not a guy who's going to cause a rift. He's like kind of like a funny, go lucky family guy who just loves baseball. So that's Lindor. And I think they love that clubhouse guy. Lindor is actually really good with the young players. He really is. I've seen him take guys under their wing. I've seen him say a lot of, pat somebody on the back, a relief pitcher who's having a bad outing. So he is actually a really good leader on the field, at least motivational wise. Oh, thank you so much. That would actually be very interesting. An old Japanese team. The funny. I watched the World Baseball Classic, and Japan. No matter which year it is, they always have a phenomenal team, and the players are always coming from Japan to the major league. So I mean, they do a great job developing talent over there. Very, very great job. Of course, they've had some of the greatest players of all time. Um, Ichiro and most recently Shohei Ohtani. So I mean, legendary, legendary. And I'm always one of my favorite players growing up was Ichiro. Bottom line, one of my favorite players. Guy had a rocket of an arm. The guy was fast as lightning, hit machine. I love the way he hit. I love the way he approached the game. The guy played into his early 40s. I mean, that's the type of guy that I would want on my team. He's a winning player. So, that's a really good point. And Kodai Senga is somebody who we've been like very successful with. Uh, First year with the New York Mets, already an all-star, and that's who we're essentially going to be building our rotation around. So he's going to be our ace right now. Kodai Senga is an ace. Hopefully, maybe we can sign a Yamamoto in the future, Urias. I mean, we have some options going into next year, and it's going to be determined how the rest of this season works out. We're going to see how our players develop. I'm hoping we get some pitchers. I'm hoping we get some pitchers in some of these late trades. Okay, so good point. So, Alex, it wasn't supposed to be a fire sale. It is now. Apparently, the front office told Verlander the Mets will not be competing until 2025. Okay, you know what? I got to respect that. I got to respect the fact that the front office was dead honest with this guy, dead honest. And I got to respect one thing. It really seemed like Verlander wanted to come here. It took him a while to make a decision about coming here. I remember that in the offseason. Like, are we going to sign DeGrom 3 years, 120? Or is Verlander going to be the backup option? It turned out to be Verlander, but the guy I give him credit. It seemed like he was all in. It's very different than Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer wanted to get out of Dodge. Justin Verlander, on the other hand, the Mets had to be honest and say, Justin, if you want to go, you might want to go because we're not going to compete for 2 more years. So it's a whole different scenario. That scenario almost is like, Justin, it's fine. You could leave, and we'll actually trade you to wherever you want to go. I mean, obviously, he has no trade clause, but it was a sweetheart deal for Justin. He's going to a place he's comfortable with, and at this time of his life, I don't think he wants to start over in a new city. That's why I kind of figured it was going to be Houston all the time. I didn't think it was going to be the Dodgers. I didn't think it was going to be definitely not Baltimore. I wanted it to be Baltimore because they have good prospects, but I kind of felt in my heart that it was going to be the Houston Astros. And, let's see. Is Justin Verlander and the Astros, are they going to win another World Series? I'm wondering how many Met fans are going to be rooting for these guys that go to other ball clubs. Are we going to be rooting for the Rangers? Are we going to be rooting for the Astros? I'm wondering. I got to see how these guys play in other uniforms and like how I feel about that. Are we going to be rooting for the Marlins? Probably not, David Robertson. But like I always follow my players, and usually I'm like, oh, how are they going to do on this team? But I don't know, that'll be interesting. Yeah, you know what? Scherzer didn't have good feelings about us at the end, so I can understand how you would feel about Max Scherzer. The guy, bottom line, he was a mercenary. He held us up $43 million a year, right? The largest contract, the largest per year value contract in Major League history was paid to Max Scherzer, $43 million a year. The guy is collecting paychecks from 3 different teams right now. I don't know if everybody saw that. The Mets are paying him, the Nationals are paying him, and now the Rangers are paying him. You know how much this guy has got a lot of money, and his focus is out of here. It's out of here. And I just want to say one thing too. In the beginning of the year, and this is where it all changed for me, the Mets started out pretty decent. They had a good record. I believe there was 6 or 7 games over 500, right? And then April 22nd, I don't know if anybody remembers what happened on April 22nd, but something significant happened on April 22nd. And I think this changed the trajectory of the entire year. That was the day Max Scherzer got busted for sticky stuff. Then he got suspended for 10 days. The Mets didn't do well in that interim. When Max Scherzer came back, he played and pitched like absolute garbage. He pitched like garbage. He would have a couple starts where he'd throw 3-4 innings, and then he'd give up like a 3-run home run. He was a completely different pitcher. So what I did was I said, what is going on with this guy? Last year, he had a 2.29 earner on average around there. He pitched really well. So I looked on Baseball Savant, and I looked at his track record. I'm like, what is different in 2023 that changed from 2022 with regards to Max Scherzer? So I'm like, what is different? So the number one thing that was different for Max Scherzer, the number one thing is his swing and miss ratio. So swing and miss is basically how guys interpret your pitches. If you have nasty movement, if you got good velocity, if they don't see your pitches well, they swing and they miss. So normally Max Scherzer would be in the 90th percentile in swing and miss. But in 2023, he went from the 90th percentile to the 50th. The 50th. So guys were hitting him. They weren't swinging and misses like they were in the past. And not only were they not swinging and missing, the hard hit ratio on Max Scherzer went through the roof. He was always in the 90th percentile in hard hit contact. And this year, 2023, he was in the 50th percentile, right? Okay, so that being said, when the Mets made the trade the other day to ship him off, and they got Luis Angel Acuna, I know they paid a lot of money. I was ecstatic because in my mind, this guy was a little better than garbage. He was. He was nowhere anywhere like he was last year. his whole repertoire changed. If you watched how he pitched, he was laboring on the mound. He was a completely different pitcher. All right, so I want to read some of the comments. All right, so you're going to be rooting for the Rangers since they have never won. You know what? That's a good thing to do. It's always good to root for the underdog. I like that. I hope they sign Blake Snell and Julio Urias. The thing is, Met fans, Blake Snell, if you think about Blake Snell, I'm pretty sure you're like, yeah, he's really good. He's good against us. He really is. He really is good against us. But I'm not really sure once he gets his big paycheck if he's going to be as committed long term. Julio Urias is a lot younger, and he's a guy I would probably consider signing before I would sign Blake Snell. Eppler is a god. He pulled a magic trick. Well, you know what? Eppler had to make up for a lot of crap. He's had a couple years of bad trades, getting ripped off. Eppler got ripped off like 3 or 4 times last year. Let's be honest. The Darren Ruff trade was basically a playbook of what not to do at the trade deadline. And Billy was never good under pressure. He was never good at these last minute deals. So the fact that he started doing deals like as early as last month, and then starting from like 5 days ago when they traded Robertson, I actually felt a bit more comfortable because Billy Eppler is not good under pressure. Last year, getting Vogelbach, who turned out to be not so great. Darren Ruff, like I said, that's got to be one of the worst trades in Major League history, in my opinion. I know it's really not, but I just don't like Billy Eppler. Then Tyler Naquin. I believe the 2 prospects we gave back, not that they're world beaters, but they are performing well in the minor league system. So Billy Eppler has a hell of a lot of work to do. I'm not satisfied with Billy Eppler, not even one bit. And the reason why Billy Eppler is able to acquire these prospects is not because of Billy Eppler. It's because of Steve Cohen being the richest owner in baseball. That's why Billy Eppler is getting some semblance of credit. Think about it. No other GMs could do about what Billy Eppler is. In fact, other GMs are probably jealous right now. They're like, if I could pay 90% of the salary, I would be getting top prospects too. So think about that and keep it in perspective. Billy Eppler has more resources and more money than any other GM or any other team in Major League Baseball. So I'm not really impressed with Billy Eppler at all. He has a lot of work to do to gain my respect. That's not a, you know what? That's not a bad option. Jordan Montgomery, he's a guy who I don't think is going to cost an arm and a leg. He's a guy who's been very consistent. He eats up innings. I like that. I like Jordan Montgomery. I was actually surprised when he was traded a couple years ago from New York, but he's a guy I would definitely be interested in. Yeah, Vogelbach. Why is Vogelbach on the team? That is an absolute great question. Excellent question. Why is he still on the team? I don't know. He has really no value. Maybe he entertains guys on the bench. I don't know. Well, how does he make this team better? I don't know. He must he must be friends with somebody right now because and nobody wanted Vogelbach. They were trying to see, they put feelers out there to see who wanted Vogelbach. So I'm hoping somebody takes him between now and the deadline, but not too many teams like him. Could the Mets trade for Bellinger and then re-sign him? I don't. If they were more competitive this year, I would say yes. But right now, I think they're into developing talent mode, so I don't think so. If they were still in win now mode, yes, but no, definitely not right now. Vogie makes the best hoagies. You know what? That may be it. That may be why he's here. Carrasco, number 3 starter next year with 15 losses. No, he's not going to be here. The rumor is that he's Pete's best friend. I think, honestly, I think it is true. They do look close in the dugout. But bottom line, things desperately will be changing right now. It doesn't matter what is going on. Pete Alonso, he's a guy I would want to see more. Let's see how Pete performs the rest of this year. If he continues this torrid pace, maybe you sign him at the end of this year. But Pete has to definitely prove that he's worth the money. Look, folks, he's going to be looking for north of $200 million, right? North of $200 million. I think Matt Olson of the Braves, I think the contract was somewhere around $180 million. So Pete, who I think is a better power hitter, and I think he's better than Matt Olson. So he's got to be north of $200 million. And if you see him aging poorly, which I kind of do, like he's not in the best shape now, if you'd notice. So that's also another thing to consider. How will the guy age? So is the guy a leader? How will the guy age? How will that affect his ability to do the only thing he does do, which is hit home runs? So there's so many different factors that you have to weigh when you're thinking about re-signing a Pete Alonso. And I love Pete Alonso. I want him to be the all-time leader in home runs. I want him to be the all-time leader in many Met categories. I want him to be a David Wright. I want him to be a Tom Seaver, a Mike Piazza, one of these legendary Mets. But we gotta focus on winning. That's what it's going to be all about. No, you can't essentially buy prospects. Let's say where you can give international players money, there's like a pool. So each team has a certain amount of money that they can go buy. So let's just say the Mets have $8 million in the international baseball pool. That's all they could spend. So it's not like they could spend $100 million. It's a little different on Japanese players. You can buy and spend money on them. But in terms of regular international players, no, you can't. Yeah, I have no clue why the Twitter logo is an X. Good question. You know what? If Pete demanded Vogie to come with him in a trade, you're right. That would nix the deal right there. Oh my God. Vogie threatened to eat Eppler if he trades him. That's pretty funny. All right, so that's good stuff. Good stuff. So Freddie signed a 6-year, $162 million contract. Goldsmith 5-year, $130, including a $20 million signing bonus. Okay, so I mean, that being said, if it would, I don't know, I would give Pete if it's those numbers, 6 years, $150 million, I would do it. I would do it in a second. But I'm thinking it's not going to be those numbers. Yeah, I don't even know if I would give Pete 200 mil. Like 200 mil over how long? 200 mil over 6 years, 200. I wouldn't give Pete more than a 6-year contract. So maybe 200 mil. I would give him about $28 million a year over 5 years. That's what I would do. Let me check something out real quick. So I'm wondering what's going on. Like, I wanted the Mets to trade away 13 players the other day. We still have a long ways to go. We got an hour and 40 minutes into the trade deadline, and the Mets still have a heck of a lot of players that I want them to trade. There's no way the Mets should end this trade deadline with Tommy Pham on the team and Brooks Raley. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way if you traded Justin Verlander, David Robertson, and Max Scherzer that those two guys should be left on the team. Now, I know they have fringe players like Omar Narvaez, Vogelbach. Okay, if you can't get rid of those guys, fine. But Brooks Raley and Tommy Pham have value. So you have to ship them off, provided you're giving up for 2024. And absolutely, we need damn pitching, and we haven't got much pitching. So, but the thing is, we have gotten a couple good pitching guys. It's gonna be for our team, our franchise to develop these guys. That's what it's gonna be about right now. We're gonna be investing the money and the resources in the minor leagues. Hopefully, we can develop some of these young guys that we picked up, and that's why I want to trade up Brooks Raley and Tommy Pham. Even if we pick up lower level chips that we could develop over the next 2 or 3 years. So by the time 2025 comes around and our payroll plummets, that's another thing. Our payroll is going to go down if we start investing in the youth. Once our payroll goes down, we could reset the luxury tax, which is a good thing. And we could also, in 2 or 3 years, sign guys who are actually worth the money. Like you'll be able to sign a Juan Soto who's not 40 years old. You'll be able to sign younger free agents. That is the way to go other than, and I would give a younger guys, like the thing is, I was thinking about this the other day. I would give guys like a Juan Soto $50, $60 million a year on a 3-year deal as opposed to giving him an 8, 9, 10, 11-year deal, because these guys are productive in their early years. They're not productive when they get to year 7, 8, 9, and 10, usually most of the time. But that's what I would do. I would kind of like think about this the next couple of years. Hopefully the New York Mets, with their monstrous resources, could restructure the contracts in a new way, just like they did in the pitching market. These $43 million contracts are really originated by the New York Mets. This wasn't happening before the last couple years. Oh my God, that's such a good point. Said in the comments, I would trade Edwin Diaz for ruining the season. You know what? Let's see what the timetable is. I'm interested to see how Edwin Diaz comes back next year. I think we signed him to a 5-year contract. We had a 3 years and an option. But I'm interested to see how he comes back. And but you're right, he really screwed up the season. He really did screw up the season. And the fact is, like, I was so upset how he got hurt. He got hurt celebrating, and I know like he was in a moment of joy. And anybody who's played sports know that when you win like a championship, he didn't win a championship yet, but when you win a big game, you're all you're emotional, and he wasn't really thinking, and he got hurt in the worst way. Once that happened, it had such a negative impact on the season. It really did. The negative impact could be felt instantaneously. And Billy Eppler even said it. Once we lost Diaz, everybody was slotted in the wrong place. Robertson was supposed to be in the 8th inning. Raley was supposed to be in the 7th inning. Ottavino was supposed to be, he would help out 7th inning or when we needed him. We would have had so much more depth if we would have had Edwin Diaz. That was actually such a good point. Plus, think about this. Not having a good closer, that affects the starting pitchers. Now they're worried about handing it off to the bullpen. That affects the lineup because now the lineup's like, oh, I got to come through because my bullpen's going to blow it. That has such a substantial effect on the team's mentality as a whole. The Edwin Diaz loss was horrific, was catastrophic for this team. It essentially was. The season was over really before it started. I remember in the first couple of games, we looked so bad. Like, we looked so bad. You could really see it. So that's a really good point. Edwin Diaz, that injury put us in such a desperate, bad situation, and nobody was giving us a closer. I remember in the beginning of the season, we were rumored to be interested in Edwin Diaz's brother, if you remember, but the Reds, who have a great young team, weren't going to trade us his brother unless we gave them a top prospect. And I don't think the Mets were willing to give up a top prospect for his brother. Yeah, you know what? I don't know if anybody knows this. That's a good point. A couple really good points in the chat right here. I don't know what happened with the car situation with the McNeil thing. I don't know if he got the car. I don't know if the squirrel's mad that he didn't get the car. Maybe that's why his play has been that bad. But if he didn't get the car, please, Lindor, get him the damn car. This guy can't play. And the thing is, the question is, in retrospect, would we have done the Lindor deal in retrospect right now, right? So we gave up Andre Jimenez, we gave up Ahmad Rosario, and then I think with Josh Wolf. So we gave up a couple of decent guys. And would we have done it? So knowing how it turned out now, would we have made the trade? And my simple answer is yes. That wasn't the mistake. I would have done the trade. The mistake was the contract. We signed him for way too much money. Too much money. He should have got about $250 million for 10 years. That would have been fair market value for Francisco Lindor. We overpaid to get him. If everyone remembers, Francisco Lindor was having a very good spring training. He was hitting home runs. He was doing phenomenal. And everybody was putting pressure on Steve Cohen to sign him. That was going to be Steve Cohen's first big move right after the trade. So everybody was putting pressure. And then Francisco Lindor put a deadline on Steve Cohen and the Mets. He said, we have to sign before the season starts, or else I'm not going to talk about it. Then we go to next year. So basically, he kind of strong-armed the Mets, and the Mets were in a desperate situation. So they gave him $1 million more than Fernando Tatis Jr., which I thought was ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous because Tatis Jr. signed like a 13-year contract. Now you're giving this guy 10 years at a higher AAV, and then you're saying, oh, and you give him an extra $1 million. So I thought the contract value that we gave him was ridiculous, but that's where I felt the mistake was. Yep. Yeah. You know that I absolutely hate the golf thing with McNeil. No, the guy's basically more focused on golfing than he is on, hitting. And you could see it. His swing is a golf swing. He's got a golf swing. He's a major leaguer who has a golf swing. So when you're at the bat, you have to take a level swing. And all this guy's doing is trying to golf the ball. So, it's ridiculous. Actually, the more I hear about that, we have to get rid of McNeil. We have to get rid of McNeil. There is a culture issue on this team. And by trading away all these players, all these friends, hopefully it can be fixed. I mean, Buck Showalter, God bless him. He was put in a room with all these billionaires, and he has to manage them. They don't want to listen to old Buck. These guys can do whatever they want. They could buy 10 houses like this. They can do whatever they want. And they've, Verlander and Max Scherzer have won World Series, and they've done everything under the sun. So they were doing things their way they wanted to. And even though Jacob deGrom wasn't pitching, it's not to be lost that we lost his presence in the dugout and on the team. I think Jacob deGrom was very well respected in the clubhouse, and I think his respect, that really translated. So that wasn't lost on me. Losing that presence, also losing Chris Bassett, those two guys were good with young players, and they were good on and off the field. So that right there, that's actually big. You could put one bad egg on the team, and that'll ruin everything. It really will. So you want the Mets to sign Trevor Bauer. So Trevor Bauer is a road. I don't think the Mets are going to go down. That's it. Yep, that's right. Good point. Good point. So David Wright was a leader. He was a leader. He set the tone on and off the field. Pete Alonso, and I know he has all the talent in the world in terms of hitting home runs, but younger players see what you do. So think about this. Everybody who works right now, if your leader is doing everything that you're not supposed to be doing, are you going to do what you're supposed to be doing if you're supposed to follow this leader, or are you going to mimic them? A lot of these people are not taking things as serious if the leader is acting like a child. If the leader is somebody not to follow, we need guys who could set an example, pick guys up. Sometimes it takes a pat on the back or say, you know what, don't worry about it. We had no leadership. We had a lot of negative energy in the last 2 months, and I heard in the press conference, Buck was trying to keep his head up, and Buck, every time they kept asking him about the team, he'd be like, you know what, we got a couple guys who are trying to be positive. We got some guys who aren't negative. You know what? Buck had to deal with a lot of crap this year, and guys, this is going to be completely different next year. Completely different. Eppler, I believe, is going to be gone. Buck, I love Buck. I would keep him. I don't know if he wants to stick around for this. They might part ways. They might want to go for a young manager. Maybe Carlos Beltran gets a shot. Maybe another young guy. But I think a whole new leadership. It's all about leadership. They're going to get a new president. They're probably going to have a new manager if Buck doesn't want to stay. But things have to change. It's all about leadership. Yeah, and that's what it's going to be. But I firmly believe next year, no matter what they're doing, they are going to try to win still. Like you bring up a good point, Johnny. The starting rotation has to be strong. I believe they are going to invest in free agents. They're not going to invest in many bats, but they are going to invest in pitching because starting pitching is so important. And the Mets realize starting pitching is so important. That's why they gave a crap load of money to Verlander and Scherzer, because they know how important starting pitching is. It's just that they invested their money poorly. They invested it poorly. Now they give it to pitchers who are a lot younger and have a lot higher ceiling. Now, how much time left do we have? All right, so we have about an hour and a half to the trade deadline. See if there's any updates. Hmm. All right, so I don't really see any updates or any trades right now. So it looks like Verlander was still the last trade. It looks like the Mets are officially eating $54 million in the Justin Verlander contract. So Verlander is owed about $93 million, and the Astros have him for about 2.5 more years. So Verlander is going to have a pretty lengthy career in Houston, which he enjoyed. And this, depending on how Verlander does, this could turn out to be a very, very good trade for the New York Mets. Let's say Verlander gets hurt, or the Houston doesn't win a World Series. Houston doesn't win a World Series. They're still paying a decent part of the contract. They're paying about half of the Justin Verlander salary, which makes him a lot more enticing at $20 million as opposed to 43. But still, the Mets saved half of. They saved about 20-something million dollars from Scherzer, another 20-something million dollars in Verlander per AAV value. So that $40 to $50 million is money saved on next year's payroll. So that's a good thing. So everybody's trying to figure out what the rotation is going to be for next year. So we have Sanger, we have Quintana, we have McGill. Everybody's like possibly Ohtani. I know it's not going to be Ohtani, but he's a guy out there. Peterson is also another option. I'm thinking probably Urias. You have Blake Snell, but I wouldn't give Blake Snell any more than like a 3-year contract. I don't trust him. Yeah, so I was just reading on Twitter right now that, not Met fans, so I'm assuming fans of other bases are saying that Met fans are delusional because Met fans are happy that we're acquiring players, and it's saying that wasn't the plan. You guys were supposed to be good. I gotta say, Met fans are very smart. We know this wasn't the plan. It's just that you got to take advantage of an opportunity, and the Mets, since they knew that the team wasn't going to be good, we have a golden opportunity to acquire talent, and that's what the Mets are essentially doing. They are taking advantage of a golden opportunity. They are acquiring talent through paying these contracts off, and they're building up their farm system. I love it. I gotta say, I love it. I would have been very disappointed if the Mets just went for it. I really would. Or if they would have gave up, they tried to buy somebody and they gave up talent, that would have been a wrong move. But this is going to pay off in the long run. It really is. Even if 2 or 3 of these guys become stars, right? Let's say we acquire like 9 or 10 prospects and only 2 or 3 become stars. That's going to be a major success. It's going to go back to, remember that deadline when Billy Eppler acquired Acuna, or Billy Eppler acquired this pitcher or that pitcher. So we're not going to know for a couple of years, but the fact that we have so many prospects gives us more of an opportunity for one of these prospects to turn out to be something. Yeah, so it's not going to be about the money with Ohtani. The Mets, if they want him, they will give him the most money. That's it. The problem with the Ohtani thing is Ohtani would have to want to come to the Mets. That's going to be the main issue. If Steve Cohen heard that Ohtani says, hey, I'll come to the Mets if they give me the most money, Steve Cohen, I guarantee, would give him the most money. The thing that does kind of worry me, and I don't know if anybody else is thinking this, with regards to Shohei Ohtani, there is something that really worries me, right? So Shohei Ohtani is a pitcher and he's a hitter, right? And he's doing things that nobody has done since like Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth wasn't, he wasn't this type of a player. He was like a home run god. But Shohei Ohtani has been sustaining this pitching success and hitting success over almost 6 years now. How long can he sustain being a high-level pitcher and a high-level hitter? How long? So if you pay him $600 million, you're essentially paying for 2 players, right? Or you're paying for a guy who's going to play 2 positions. But really, how feasible to expect a guy to play 2 positions over a long-term contract? I mean, if they say, hey, I'm going to pay you over 5 years, yeah, that's fine. But I'm afraid they're going to give him over a 10, 12-year period, they're going to give him $600 million. And I think that would be, although he's the best of the best, how feasible, how logical is it to believe that this guy could produce in 10 years in 2 positions at that crazy, insane value? I don't know. That's what just I'm thinking. And maybe the Mets are starting to be rational right now. Maybe they're like, we're going to focus more on Soto. Even though he doesn't have the upside, he's more of a safer bet. All right, so let's see. We still got Brooks Raley. We still got Tommy Pham. These are 2 guys who I expect to go. Let's see if we have any updates on either of them. Okay, so the news, the latest rumor for Brooks Raley, that I could see is the Cubs. They seem to be interested in hot pursuit of Brooks Raley. So it looks like a deal could come soon. That's what the rumors are. And let me see what I see with Tommy Pham. I'm also going to look up the Cubs farm system. I want to see if there's anybody worth getting. Wow. Wow. So according to Mark Feinson, he sent this out 9 minutes ago. He goes that here are some players to watch that teams are in hot pursuit of. One of the guys he names is Jose Quintana. So Jose Quintana seems like he's attracting a lot of talent. Another guy that he names is Tommy Pham. Other guys are Teoscar Hernandez, Dylan Carlson, Adam Duvall, Jurassic Profar. But our guys, he names two. And then, of course, we have Brooks Raley being really pursued in hot pursuit by the Cubs. Let me see who the Cubs have. And, it's funny. Let me see who the Cubs have. And then you bring up the prospects. And what an insult to injury. Their top prospect is none other than Pete Crow Armstrong. What a slap in the face. All right, so let's look at the Cubs' top prospects. So the top prospect is Pete Crow Armstrong. Then they have a right-handed pitcher, Cade Horton. Another right-handed pitcher, Ben Brown. See, the Cubs actually have a couple pitchers in their top 10. I don't know much about them, but if you're the Mets and you're going to trade a lefty guy like that, like Brooks Raley, a guy who has such a big impact, and you can grab like one of those pitchers, and like I said, I don't know much about them. I'm just like looking to see if they have any pitching talent in their top part of their system, and they do. So hopefully the Mets are doing their due diligence on who could potentially work out long term. Some of these guys are a bit younger and they're further away from the major league team, so they can't help the Cubs now. So that is somebody who I would want the Mets to pursue. Hey man, yeah, thank you so much, David. I really, really appreciate that. I really do, and I 100% agree on the Yamamoto thing. I think Yamamoto, the Mets have done a good job at scouting. They have been. I've seen reports that they have been scouting Yamamoto. I saw a report as early as June that they were sending scouts to watch Yamamoto, and Yamamoto, a bit of a smaller guy, but let's go into some details about Yamamoto because I find him as a very interesting option for the Mets over the offseason. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. So this is what I love about Yamamoto. So if anybody doesn't know this, Yamamoto is a guy who's pitching now in Japan. He's 24 years old. He's got a bit of a smaller frame. He's 5'10", but the guy has been pitching lights out the last couple of years. He's not a heavy strikeout guy. He strikes out about 8 or 9 batters per nine. So he's got nothing crazy with the strikeouts, but he is almost unhittable. His whip is minuscule, minuscule. So he is a guy that I would definitely 100% take a chance on. And the Mets really have been scouting him. So I 100% agree with that assessment. See, I didn't even know he's being projected to be a better pitcher than Otani. I heard a lot of good stuff about him, a lot of hoopla, but you know, like I said, the Mets, they are very, very into the Japanese scouting market. So I would expect them to be front runners if they were interested. Plus his age too. He's a 23-year-old. He's essentially a young prospect. This is the guy you would want. These are the players you sign. These are the players, 23, 24-year-old. You don't sign 40-year-old. So that is the perfect direction that the Mets could go in. So I love that. I love that. That is absolutely something I would do. You know what? I apologize if the audio is really bad. I'm gonna see if I can try to fix it. They literally had to work on my service over here, and they updated it, and it got worse. It got worse. I updated it to the fastest speed, and then it started getting choppy. So I really apologize about that. Hold on. You know what? Give me a second. I'm going to speak to my tech person. Actually, that's my wife, but hold on. What? What? All right, I apologize about that. Yeah. I'm trying to fix his audio right now. I just like I said, I spoke to my tech person, my wife. She's not. We got to. I got to reset it after. So I apologize about the lagging right now. I'm just gonna have to deal with it and then just fix it after. Um, wow. If is that true? Wow. If that's true, so Max was asked by a reporter, and Max said Eppler told him Mets won't contend until 26, 27, 2026 or 2027. I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not the case. Wow. Honestly, when I hear that, I kind of think that Billy Eppler only said that just so these guys would agree to waive their no trade clause. I don't think it's 2027. We're in 2023 right now. 3-4 years away? No, I mean, I would be hard pressed to believe that. But thank you. That's good information. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna just end this and restart it. I'm gonna try to fix this lagging thing. It's annoying me too. I apologize. I'll be back soon if I can.